What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, guys. Came across this video. I believe it was just posted yesterday. And I believe I've talked about this in another video about how it just wouldn't work out if Australia was overpopulated. And lo and behold, they came out with this video. What if Australia had the population of China? I don't know. That's me personally. I don't think it'll work out, and even though I haven't been to Australia yet, just looking at it and just see how it is, what it's like and stuff like that, I don't think it will work out simply because of, especially from that video where it was like 95% of Australia is empty. So, and it's like that for a reason. And if you get the population of China, it's probably going to be even more overcrowded. It's probably be 2-3 times the amount of people that's already there. I've seen the streets of China and some other Asian countries. It's too many people to me, too many people. But we're gonna check this out, see what it's about. So y'all hit that subscribe button, send down those recommendations. Let's see.
What if Australia had the population of China? Now, quick disclaimer, this video is completely hypothetical and purely for fun and entertainment purposes. There is, in fact, absolutely no way anyone would be able to predict what Australia would look like if you were to multiply their population by 55 to equal that of China's.
Ooh.
For the purpose of this video, we will call this new country of 1.4 billion people New Australia. So today, Australia's population sits at around 26 million or so, meaning that humans are actually quite easily outnumbered by kangaroos, whose population is estimated to be around 34 million.
Oh,
China, on the other hand, the world's most populated country, has a population of around 1.4 billion. That's around 50.
All right, I didn't know. I knew it was a lot of people in China. I didn't know it was 1.5 billion people type in China. I didn't know that. Dang. And this is a recent study type thing. That's a lot of people. That's too many people. China don't look that big.
5 times larger than Australia. Now, Australia could be said to be severely underpopulated. It is, after all, the 6th largest country in the world, and yet has a population lower than the world's 3 most populated cities by urban area.
Dang.
Only Mongolia of Asia has a lower population density than that of Australia, at around 2 and 3 people per kilometers squared. Australia's largest state, Western Australia, has a population density even lower than Mongolia's, at just over 1 person per kilometers squared, with Perth making up the vast majority of that population density. China, conversely, has a population of around 1.4 billion. It is the 3rd or 4th, depending on disputed territories, largest country in the world, with a population density of around 149 people per kilometers squared.
Wow.
So what could Australia look like if it were to suddenly adopt the population?
I can tell you this, the Outbacks probably wouldn't be the Outbacks anymore. There would definitely be something out there.
Of China. So first things first, let's say Australia's newly adopted population were to arrive on the shores down under and equally split themselves across the 6 states of Australia in the percentages that currently exist. So that's 32% New South Wales, 26% Victoria, 20% Queensland, 10% Western Australia, 7% South Australia, 2% Tasmania, and 1% Northern Territory. This now means that New South Wales's population has increased from around 8 million to a staggering 450 million. Victoria would go from around 6.5 to 360 million.
Oh my
Queensland
gosh.
5.3 to 280 million. Western Australia 2.8 to 140 million, South Australia 1.8 to nearly 100 million, and Tasmania around 500,000 to 28 million. And finally,
I'm definitely want to know y'all take on it. That would be insane. That would be insane. Like, it would. This kind of look like Florida to me. This is very interesting. But that would be insane amount of people. Like, don't get me wrong. we where I live at in Texas, it's kind of like the country. It got like a city type vibe, but it's like the surrounding cities. My city is bigger than the surrounding small cities. You know what I'm saying? Small towns and stuff like. We have a small town, but the surrounding small towns are even smaller. But ours is just the right amount. But I could never live in a big city like with too many people. And just imagine these numbers are 5 times, maybe 6 times, 10 times, even more. That would be crazy. That would be a crazy amount. Oh my, China is on a different level. That is crazy.
Northern Territory, which although not an official state, makes up an insignificant 1% of Australia's population. This region would still have a pretty decent population of around 14 million, more than the likes of countries such as Tunisia, Belgium or Sweden. This really just puts it into perspective as to how many people really live in China. In this made-up scenario, New South Wales now has a population larger than that of the United States, and would only have a population lower than India and China itself. There are an estimated 900,000 Aboriginals in Australia. That's around 3% of the total population. In New Australia, this would mean that the Aboriginal population would increase to nearly 50 million, more than the entire population of Spain. Australia has just 5 cities with a population greater than 1 million. They are Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth and Adelaide. Together combined, they have a population of around 15 million or so. Again, for reference, China has 4 individual cities with a higher population than these 5 cities combined.
That is crazy.
Australia's east coast would become utterly unrecognizable as the country's most populated region.
Like just seeing the population, I see, cause don't China like have a rule or something where they can't have a certain amount of kids. They gotta have a certain amount of kids or something like that. If I'm not mistaken, like. Per family, they can only have 2 because it's so overpopulated. I may be wrong. You know, I probably should have did the research before I said that. But that's what I thought I've heard before, that they can only have so many children because of how populated it is. That's crazy.
See infrastructure
that's a lot of people.
Like nothing we've ever seen before in human history. Catering for around 13 million people today to over 800 million in New Australia.
Oh my.
Now, do you think the inhospitable regions of Australia...
All of that probably would have been houses or something. With that many people, they would have been like, we need more space. This would have been some houses out here. Probably
will become
there's a huge possibility.
Well, even with a population increase of 55 times, probably not. Humans always have and always will flock to coastal regions of countries for the sheer fact that importing and exporting of goods is infinitely easier. Therefore, New Australia would likely follow the same path. Just how, like modern-day China, sees the vast majority of its population situated on its east coast. Very few people live in its western provinces. Cities would pop up left, right and centre in New Australia, mainly along the east and south coast. Not only cities, but infrastructure such as railway, roads and airports would be essential to transport this sheer amount of people. Now, it's not just Australia that would change dramatically if this scenario was to actually happen. Australia's brother and pretty much only neighbour, New Zealand, would see gigantic demand for emigration and likely have a significant...
I think if that happened for any country, I think it would have, like spots that we see where a lot of land is, it probably would have been covered up by now. It probably would have been new cities and all that stuff.
Significant boost
that many people, it would.
Due to huge increase in trade and tourism. Other countries across Australasia, Micronesia and beyond would also be inundated with tourists, which would boost their economy but also likely cause irreversible ecological damage. Australia has a very healthy and strong economy. For a country with such a relatively small population that finds itself isolated from the rest of the world's economy, it certainly punches above its weight. It ranks as the 14th largest economy on Earth, placing them above the likes of Mexico, a country with a significantly larger population that shares a land border with the US, the world's largest economy.
Australia?
Although not a fair or balanced calculation, if we were to theoretically multiply Australia's GDP by the same amount we multiplied its population to match China by, that's around 55 times. Then its GDP would skyrocket from around 1.7 trillion US dollars to over 93 trillion US dollars.
I ain't gonna lie. If they was about the money, I feel like the USA would have did that. I feel like they wouldn't have had no problem with that as long as it's bringing in the money. But sometimes, money ain't everything. All money ain't good money.
Now, of course, this is absolutely not how this would work whatsoever, so take it with a pinch of salt. Now, if we were to say half this figure, which would now give the Aussies a GDP of around 45 trillion, this seems much more reasonable. Australia actually has a very small yet efficient and effective military. At just 60,000 active personnel, it is completely and utterly dwarfed by armies like, say, the US, India, or China. However, if we were to multiply this 60,000 strong active personnel, New Australia would have the largest army in the world, at around 3.3 million. If we were to take reserve military into account, of which Australia has around 30,000 personnel, even after multiplying by 55 times, it still would not be the largest, as North Korea, South Korea, Vietnam, and India would all have more soldiers. Australia having a population size of that of China's would be incomprehensibly detrimental to the land, biodiversity and ecology of this beautiful country. Australia prides itself on being such a large, almost untouched country filled with flora and fauna. So much so that it has one of, if not the strictest border controls in the world, not allowing any form of foreign seeds or foods into the country. Now, housing, feeding and having suitable infrastructure for 1.4 billion people would see the destruction of Australia's beautiful landscapes. Not only this,
my brain
the
just
noise,
thinking about
air and light pollution from so many humans would utterly destroy the ecological equilibrium. The Great Barrier Reef is unfortunately already dying and has lost the majority of its healthy coral. Now imagine the increased pollution that would enter these waters with this many extra people. It would be a death sentence to the world's largest living organism. Wildlife across the country would see a major blow and decline too, as habitats would be destroyed in order to build infrastructure. Currently, there are around 20 million vehicles on Aussie roads. Times this by 55 and we could see 1 billion vehicles across the country. Levels of roadkill and destruction from pollution would annihilate the...
It definitely would have been like Houston. That's what it would have been like, probably worse than Houston.
Australian wildlife
would have been probably like LA. LA traffic is ridiculous. I think New York traffic is ridiculous. It would have been like that.
Australia's largest exports come from mining, gas, and meat. These exports will be amplified significantly, again causing major damage to the ecosystems of this country. So it is without a shadow of doubt that if given Australia's current state, but with 55 times more people, they will be the most powerful, richest, and advanced country on Earth. Not only this, but Australia's remoteness and geography would make it the most difficult country on Earth to conquer, essentially granting them the sole world superpower status. Even the US will be far out of its depth, competing with New Australia. So there we have it, that's what potentially New Australia could look like. Let us know your thoughts below about what you think about this new country. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you very soon in our next video.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine, I feel like everything gonna have its pros and cons, in certain aspects some people probably be like, oh, that's good, that'll be good for this. Some people think, that'll be good, bad for that type of thing. But no, like I see why I'm trying to pull up, because somebody sent me an interesting comment that I woke up to. Like, I'm like, dang, what I do? But, I try to show love. I do a lot of Australia because I love Australia and I'm going to get there. My goal is to get there and stuff too. But somebody woke up and firstly, I think they need to go back to spelling class. But, I try to show love Australia. I understand, like, you like the numbers, the population numbers. They fit perfect. Not too many people, not too crowded at all. I understand. I don't like crowd either. But somebody, Linda Andrews, she said, stay in America, Aussies. Truth. We know one American here. I'm like, dang, what I do? I'm just trying to, I want to visit. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know what she was on that morning, or probably afternoon for her, morning for me. But, I definitely understand. When you got, I wouldn't say a small community, but when you got to have a country with a certain population, like, I don't like being overcrowded either. But those China numbers are ridiculous. That's a lot of people. That's too many people to me, if you ask me. But I guess that's just how it is. I think, well, they had India, Japan, all those places. Like, I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine living in those crowds. But very interesting takes, very interesting numbers. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this in the comments below. Y'all hit that subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up. Y'all be blessed, be the best, and be you. I'm out.